I'm Craig O, and join me on my adventures with Craig O's cryptocurrency as we cover the blockchain, Web3, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies, interviewing the best in the industry, giving tips and tricks, and also sharing with you projects that I'm most excited about. You're tuning into Craig O's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technology. Great reviews, incredible interviews with some of the leading people in the Web3 ethos, and just the general things Web3 related. Ralph Quintero knows a thing or two about what it takes to make a business successful. He has led award-winning global teams and communities and has built multiple businesses in tech, consumer electronics, and marketing sectors. He is a strategist, entrepreneur, advisor, and community builder, giving him a unique perspective into what is trending and how companies can leverage and scale their businesses. Ralph is a self-described degen who is extremely passionate about NFTs and the future of Web3. Currently, he holds over 700 notable NFTs in his personal portfolio. Ralph created a newsletter called the Daily Ralpha that is read by thousands of people across Web3. A 5-minute read is all it will take, and you will be armed with all the information you need to make informed decisions on your NFTs, purchase, and sales. Caution and due diligence is his mantra to the community. He will give you the insight, but he always says proceed with caution and educate yourself first. We are going to do a deep dive into the creation of the Daily Ralpha and unpack all the great insights and alpha that is delivered on the daily, absolutely free. The template on his newsletter stays consistent while providing valuable information to readers on upcoming mints, projects, and things to watch out for, including daily ETH price, cross-chain information, along with some really fun, notable tweets. Ralph is the Chief Good Morning Officer of one of my favorite alpha groups, JPEG Morgan in the house, co-founder of Foam Ventures, which is a small syndicate fund building infrastructure in Web3. He is a strategist and the head of community at CryptoLeauge, which is revolutionizing the way that communities come together to invest in Web3. He actively advises executive teams on Web3 strategy, marketing, and community building. There is no FOMO with Ralph. He plots, plans, strategizes, and implements to get the best opportunities and success for his community and subscribers of the Daily Ralpha, like myself. Welcome, Ralph. How are you, my friend?
What is up, Craig? Pleasure to be here, man. What an intro. You are a pro, my friend.
In the process of it, I appreciate it, man. There's a lot of great conversations that I've had, and I said before you came on, you fill in a lot of really cool gaps. And by that, last year, my story was really short. My good friend, Sean Rosenfeld, who's also a partner in Craig O's Crypto Corner and also a member of JPEG Morgan, we had a conversation on a March evening, 2021, and I literally did not go to bed. I think I told you this story. And I was up all night hearing about NBA Top Shot and Vivi. And when I saw it, I was like, my gosh, something is up here. And I told Sean, I said, one day we're going to partner up. And I started to visualize and put that together. So thank you so much. Yeah, that intro for me is really exciting to have you on for so many different reasons. And I want to fill in the gaps. I really first want to get to it. And I want to talk to you about the Daily Ralpha. First, it is for me because I'm experienced in Web3, as are you. It is a 5-minute read. For those that aren't, maybe it's an 8 or 10-minute read. As you become more proficient, you become better at it. But tell me about the Good Morning Gang, right? These are the top things to address in Web3. What is like the biggest focal point when you're creating the Good Morning Gang part, which is the very first thing that people lay their eyes on when they head into that note?
So first off, thanks again for having me. I'm enjoying being here. When I put the GM Gang message together before I get into the depth of the Daily Ralpha, I'm thinking about the most important things that you need to know. Like if you were going into the office and you were standing at the water cooler, or you were sitting in a conference room and people started to talk about NFTs, that gives you kind of a really short pulse of what's going on, and you can have a very intelligent conversation with anybody about the space, and it kind of sets the tone for the day.
No, I love it. And that kind of gives me that quick recap because I obviously, once you start following the Daily Ralpha, this newsletter, that is free. I can't say it enough, right? Because there's going to be certain things where your newsletter at a certain point or to have access won't be as free. So this is the time to kind of take advantage of that and start subscribing now. But that kind of gives me a recap as I go from day to day and I follow it. And I was able to find some really cool things. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the market performance stats, right? So you kind of list the top NFT projects. I think you usually do the top five. But tell me about what you're noticing, a trend that you notice with the ETH, the flow of ETH in and out of different blue chip collections.
So what I'm noticing over the course of the last couple of weeks in this bear market is that there's there's blue chips being sold, but that ETH isn't being transferred into other projects. It's staying in the wallets, right? So my speculation is in anticipation of the merge, which is happening somewhere on or around September 10th. People are just sitting their ETH on the sidelines and waiting to see what the result of the merge is going to be. That's the biggest trend that I see in terms of blue chip projects and the flow of ETH. Obviously, there's some outliers like Gaiku, which is like blowing everybody's mind recently in terms of volume. But for the most part, that's what I see.
Got it. And so do you think that the when you look at the short term, paper hand mentality, right? So someone takes their ETH, puts it to the side. What do you think the play is before this merge to proof of stake from proof of work on the Ethereum blockchain?
In terms of what, Craig? Like
Yeah.
specific?
So they sell they say that for instance they sell their board ape and they're sitting there with ETH and they're kind of holding on the sidelines going, okay, proof of stake is coming. Maybe I'm gonna hold my ETH, wait to see what happens, see how things are gonna move, how the market's gonna behave. For those that aren't and are maybe a little impatient or maybe have a little bit of a degen mentality, what kind of projects do you think that they're eyeing or thinking about? Maybe. I don't know if you were to get in their head for a second.
So I think there's two angles to this, right? One angle is they're selling a very expensive asset for the most part. So like if you're selling an ape, a board ape, you're looking at maybe anywhere from 70 to 90 ETH exit point, depending on the rarity of your ape, and you can sit on that ETH. Now, some of those people that are sitting on ETH may be considering becoming validators in post merge. So I believe it takes just under 30 ETH to become a validator, and they may be thinking of a longer term play with their ETH. Other people may be looking to get into other less expensive blue chip projects and work the swing, right? So they may not have as much of a swing with a board ape. Maybe the board apes go from 70 to 80 ETH, whereas they may jump into a project like Doodles, which is currently sitting just south of 8 ETH, but they may see that ride much bigger post merge. Who knows, right? But those are the kind of the two angles that I see a lot of people taking.
Yeah, a lot of exciting things that are going on with Doodles, and we'll talk a little bit about more about the Doodles community, but they were very omnipresent at the NFT NYC, which was so much fun. I wish every week was NFT NYC. My wife would be
Right?
like, "Where are you, honey? Where are you coming home?" No, I'm in
Hmm.
New York partying, having a great time, figuring out more about Web3. You make a lot of really good points in that. So, historical trends of Ethereum. Now, I remember with Coinbase, there were three tokens on, and my cousin had initially gotten me on. I think in 2017, if I was to go back to that point, there's three tokens, right? Ethereum, Litecoin, which hasn't really done much of anything, unfortunately, because I don't know, I like to see it do something, and then Bitcoin.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Because you in the Daily Ralpha, you give sort of the 24-hour run of what Ethereum is doing, and in any given point, I think for the past week I've been tracking at maybe $100 plus or minus. But historically, what have you noticed in the way of Ethereum that maybe either makes you bullish or makes you cautious? What are your thoughts there?
I don't know that it makes me either bullish or cautious, right? I pay attention to the trends because you learn a lot from history. And people say that history repeats itself. And, I'll be the first one to say I don't always get it right in the Daily Ralpha. A few months back, pre bear, I was tracking what was going on with ETH at, let's say, a month ago versus what it had been doing a year prior. And I was starting to see this trend and I was going, man, if ETH does now what it did back then, we're going to see this thing run. And it did for like a day, and then it just completely flip flopped on me. And we entered the bear market, right? So, history doesn't always work out like to the very day, but I think regardless of whether you're looking at ETH history or you're looking at the history of the world, um, you do see a pattern where it repeats itself, and barring some kind of tragedy or like some kind of like really big screw up with this merge, I think things bode well for ETH. I think ETH becomes kind of the utility play in terms of a token, where Bitcoin remains, a store of value. That's at least that's how I characterize it.
I agree. I don't think that store of value is going to change for Bitcoin at all. I don't think their blockchain needs to do much of anything. I think when you are, a market leader or first to market, you don't have to have the highest standard. You just have to be consistent. And I think that Bitcoin, I think, accomplishes that in the minds of a lot of people, right? It's not what
Yeah,
you and I think, it's what does the general public think.
yeah.
I do want to talk to you about NFT drops. So this is all part, everybody that's listening in, this is all part of the Daily Ralpha. And so anybody that's tuning in on Twitter Spaces, we put that live. Go and subscribe. Check this out. It's absolutely free for now. I don't know that it will be forever, and I'm taking advantage of it every day. And when it goes to paid subscription, if it does, I'll pay for it happily. But the NFT drops, you guys do a lot of, you specifically, because it is a little bit of a family fair. Maybe we'll dive into that. But you do a lot of due diligence. And I want you to tell us, the community, how you connect with the founders and the creators to understand if this is something that you're going to put in your newsletter.
Absolutely. So, one of the most spread around acronyms in this space is DYOR, do your own research. And I live by that. That's how the Daily Ralpha started. The Daily Ralpha started with me doing research for the family, together with the family, about the projects that we're going to drop. And back then, the Daily Ralpha is a little bit more than a year old. Maybe we were evaluating 10 projects a day. For anybody who's been in the space long enough, you think back to those times, it was like, yeah, we could keep a handle on it. Fast forward to today, sometimes there's hundreds. I've seen as many as 1,000 projects drop in a single day, and most of them don't go anywhere. But the ones that do require a lot of research and understanding who's behind the project, what the community's like, what the likelihood of success is. So I do spend a lot of time researching that. I would say that that's the bulk of the time that's spent in putting together the Daily Ralpha, because everything else comes together post research, but the research is the foundation for the daily update.
Yeah, and the other thing, I have my friend in the studio who's just hanging out today, and we were talking about him setting up his MetaMask wallet, and we're talking about the seed phrase. And
Yep.
most importantly, when anybody goes to set up a MetaMask wallet or any wallet, make sure that you write that down and you put that in a space that can never be lost. But it goes into talking about wallets. And so for those that are truly experienced in the space, you have a minting wallet, and then you have your main wallet, and then you have your cold wallet. And you can do multiples of each. I actually think it's pretty smart once you really get experienced and versed. So that's one of the biggest things that you talk about is, right, do your own research. Make sure that you're educating yourself. But if you don't have a hot wallet, because you could have something that's a faulty smart contract. There were a couple projects along the way, right? And you've given
Mhm.
some really great insight. I've actually minted a number of projects without any problems, but sometimes with free mints, there can be some flaws. And there are people out there ill-intentioned, even with all the due diligence, right, that one can do. So, you want to protect your downside, and just
Yeah.
because something's on your newsletter, you've done as much due diligence as you can. So tell me about, any protocol, even for our listeners on Twitter Spaces, because a lot of them are alpha. They're in that space because they understand it. But anybody that's listening in outside of that, what is like one thing that can simplify this process of learning, or when you're going to play in a wallet? What is like maybe one or two tidbits of tips that you could give us?
Yeah, I was going to say I may have more than one or two, but
Yeah.
I'll try and keep it short. Look, the reality of it is we've all gotten rugged, right? And if you're listening to this, if you're new to this space and you don't know what getting rugged means, it means getting taken for a ride. It means losing out on whatever ETH you invested in a project. And it's happened to every single person I know. Not a lot of people talk about it, but it almost feels like a rite of passage in this space, right? It's like, yeah, I got rugged. Some of us for a lot more than others. Um, and it's sad. Like I wish that it wasn't like that. And I think as this industry evolves and the space evolves, we're going to see less and less of that. But wallet strategy is really important. It's kind of like saying, you have your savings account at the bank and you have the wallet that you carry with you every day. The wallet that you carry with you every day is, where you keep the cash to buy your coffee, to buy your groceries, to get some gas. It's the money that you're going to continue to rotate day in and day out.
Yeah.
The stuff that you keep in your bank, i.e., that's what I call the cold wallet. So your personal wallet's your hot wallet. Your cold wallet is like your bank. That's where you store your valuables, right?
Right.
Those are the things that you want to store that you don't want anybody getting their hands on, and you're not going to be walking around with $100,000 in your pocket ever, right? Unless you're Floyd Mayweather. you're going to keep it in a bank, right? So at the end of the day, that's the easiest way I can use to describe it, but it is important. So in my personal case, I have multiple wallets. I have multiple hot wallets, which are wallets that are connected to the internet that I transact with, and then I have multiple cold wallets, where I keep my most prized possessions and NFTs or one of ones. And as a matter of fact, I always have extra ledgers on my desk. This is another
Yeah,
one because I
yeah,
like to segment things too, right? I like
yeah.
to spread things around and
And
just.
and then one tip for the people that are listening, if you're gonna order a Ledger cold wallet, or a Ledger device,
Mhm.
do not order from Amazon or any third-party
No,
service. Go directly to Ledger. Again, that's another way that someone could put some malware, and then they've got you. You set up, you say, "Hey, I'm gonna set up so you can steal everything." The other thing that I grabbed from the Daily Ralpha the other day, it was probably about a week ago, is notifications. So on Twitter, there's a little notification
Mhm.
tab, and now, whenever I mint into a project that I want to follow, from your great suggestions, again, I do my due diligence, putting that out there, is I literally set up that notification button. And I have to tell you, that has made all the difference. Now, if it gets too noisy on that channel, or it's not serving me any greater purpose, or it's not a community I want to engage with any longer, I either go off from the Discord and leave the server, or I simply untab from the follow button
Mhm.
on Twitter, so that way I can reduce the noise, because we're in a very noisy space with a lot of hype and FOMO, and trying to figure it all out is not always easy. So the other part that I really enjoy are the quick news updates. How did that part in your newsletter come about?
So before I jump into that, I do want to give you one, like Ralpha, right? We're here to talk about alpha and tips. Going back to the Twitter notifications, um, as your workflow evolves, one of the things that you can do, which I do, I'm giving you my behind the scenes, behind the curtain look at my Twitter strategy, is I create lists for these projects first. So, projects that are maybe 3 to 4 weeks out from minting, I have them in a list so that I can just go and reference that list. And then as we get into maybe 4 days or 3 days from actual mint day, then I'll turn on the notifications. And that's how I limit all of this noise that goes on. So that's how I manage that side. And then as far as the news, right, we're all flooded with news and everybody knows kind of at a very high level what's going on OpenSea or maybe what's going on with ETH. But there's a lot of really cool things happening in this space every single day that may not get as much of a mention. And those are the kinds of things that I try and raise and flag for everybody to see, right? The kind of cool things that companies are doing, that innovators are doing, the people who are going to change this space.
Yep.
Those are the kinds of news bits that I try and raise every single morning in the Daily Ralpha.
I like how you organize your early project finds, because that's another tab in the
Mhm.
newsletter, and that's been incredible. And at least that gives me some alpha advice, because I've been a little bit overwhelmed on how to manage everything, and that was the one thing that I've held on to over the past week, as I actually unfollowed a particular project because
Yep.
it didn't serve me any interest. When I think of digital assets, NFTs, I think of membership, access, exclusivity, but also community building. When you think of NFTs, what are some of the words or thoughts that conjure in your mind?
Art, utility, and community are the three that I always default to, right? Art, because I believe that art and art NFTs are a gateway drug to understanding blockchain and Web3. At least it was for me, right? So I bought my first crypto back in 2019, very small amounts. It was just to gain exposure on my portfolio and say that I was in crypto. I didn't really care to understand the underlying technology, the cryptography. Like I knew it was different, and I've always been in tech, but the impetus to learn more about it wasn't there until I discovered NFTs. Like you, when that first day I discovered NFTs, I went down the rabbit hole. I didn't sleep. I was like, man, this is incredible, and I understood it. I understood it because now there was a collectability aspect to it. I'm a collector at heart, so it helped me to understand it. So I always say art is the gateway drug to understanding blockchain and Web3.
Yeah.
Utility, I think, is the ultimate play. I think that's where we're going. I think that's going to kind of be the key word for the next several months, maybe years. I think the amount of projects that people get into are going to be smaller and smaller, but they're going to be focused, on the next part, which is community, right? Communities and utility are going to be the ultimate, combination of things that are going to drive projects forward and make them succeed.
Yeah, and I do want to do a screen share with Tony, and I agree with you on all of those things, right? Art, utility, and community. I couldn't agree more. It's one of the reasons why I love this space so very much. Is there's so much to learn. Useful tools. So I do want to do a quick screen share, and I was going through today's Daily Ralpha because I knew we were going to talk about it, and I'm going to pull it up right now on the screen share. It's called Vitamin 3. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this platform and why it got onto your Daily Ralpha?
So every day, as part of the Ralph, I share a useful tool of the day, and I have reviewed over 200 tools. Vitamin 3 is one of my particular favorites, right? So I don't use every single tool, but I do have my favorites. You know what I keep in my personal toolbox. Vitamin 3 is one of them. It's a daily text, so it comes in as an SMS, and it deconstructs Web3 in a very easy to understand way. It's in 180 words or less. It comes into my phone. I don't have to dig for it. And it's taught me a lot. It's made me a lot smarter about the space. So I would consider that one of my most coveted educational tools. And then I have several other tools for analytics, for rarity checking, for project tracking, portfolio management. As a matter of fact, today, and here's a little bit more alpha, or actually not today, because if you're listening on Twitter, it is today. When you listen to this on the show, it's going to be further out. I just launched the directory portion of the Daily Alpha, which is all of the tools I've reviewed that are still active and that I give my vote of confidence to. So we have a list of over 100 NFT tools that you can reference and use them to become a better collector, a better investor, and just more educated in the space.
My favorite tool right now, and obviously they change from time to time, is Trait Sniper. I enjoy to engage with that because I guess one of the things that we should talk about for those that are listening in are the rarity in traits. I'm always fascinated by that. I've always been sort of the floor guy. So for those that are listening on Twitter, like floor, okay. I always try to get two of something. Some people will go three. But then as I start to like the collection, I start to then say, where how far am I willing to go up above the floor for something that might be special if this project does well long term? What are your thoughts on strategy when you're getting NFTs?
So I have a similar strategy. If I'm minting something, I will not mint something unless I can mint two. I've learned that lesson. I end up having a ton of FOMO when I miss out on minting two, because most of the time I want to keep one, and if I want to be a bit of a degen flipper, I'd want to flip another one. And the reality of it, Craig, is that this is still a very highly speculative market. I would say that more than 80% of people in this space right now are speculators. Like, you could say whatever you want, and people may not like what I'm saying right now, but it's the truth. Right?
Truth.
The second that the floor price starts to dwindle or something's happening, communities freak out. And that's, to me, that's not a true sense of community. That's just kind of the speculators,
Right.
being upset that their floor price isn't holding up. So like you, I always mint two. And then, I start paying attention in terms of minting strategy. Like, I will almost always post mint buy floor. I think that's your best investment in terms of being able to recoup your initial investment or make money. Outside of that, I will go to either top 10 rarity, or there's certain projects, like if you look at Cool Cats and even Doodles, they have like numbers 1 through 50 are one of ones, right? So that's what I would consider kind of the grail pieces. So 90% of the time I'm minting floor or buying floor on the secondary, and then the other time, like you said, if I have an affinity to a project and I want to stay part of that community, then I'll start looking for pieces that I can hold long term.
Absolutely. You know, NFT jobs, right? So this space, when I first started the podcast, I said, Rachel, I'm going to start a podcast, and got my business partner, Adam Hirsch, who's a close friend of mine. And then obviously Sean Rosenfeld just came on not too long ago. And when I told her that we were going to do a podcast, content creation, she goes, huh? And Adam, as he's writing the check to get this thing going so we can produce amazing content, he says, do you think you'll have enough information out there? Do you think I'll have enough content? I said, I could probably talk night and day. If you woke me
Mhm.
up in my sleep, I could probably just start telling you something that you didn't know, or something I just learned before I went to sleep. So it's really incredible. So NFT jobs in this space, right? That's another thing in the Daily Alpha. Tell me a little bit about that, and what are you thinking about the job market? Maybe not directly NFT related, but actual work related. What are your thoughts?
So there's a little bit of alpha in that as well, right? So I think jobs are an important part, and that came directly from reader feedback. That is the newest section that has been added to the Ralpha, and it wasn't there originally, and it came as a result of direct user feedback, right? So one of my readers who's interested in working full time in this space said, "Hey, do you know of any jobs out there? Would be super cool if you could start posting some NFT or Web3 jobs." I said, "Oh, that's a great idea." So I started it, and it caught on. I mean, everybody really likes it. I've had outreach from several companies asking if they could post jobs on the Daily Ralpha. I mean, the Daily Ralpha today is read by 55,000 people. So the jobs are getting in front of a lot of people. And day in, day out, I see more and more people wanting to get into this space full time, like I did back in January. Um, but the alpha here is that if you're paying attention to the companies that are hiring, you start to kind of develop a vision for where the space is going. So, great example. Last week, Amazon had posted a job for a director of Web3 strategy. Right. To me, that's a very bullish sign that Amazon is looking to get into the space. And when a giant like that gets into it, what does it do for the broader space overall? So I've been able to surface a lot of really cool intelligence and alpha just by paying attention to who's posting jobs and what those jobs are.
I love it. I love it. I think that's really important. 55,000 readers. Wow. So the last one that I wanted to talk about in the Daily Ralph, and then we're going to continue to go from there. There's a lot of great things that we're going to discuss. Is the tweet of the day. It always makes me laugh. The crazy stuff that people post, and then you kind of say, "Hey guys, this is a good one." What is your favorite tweet of the day thus far?
Oh my God. There's so many, right? Like, that was very intentional too. Like everybody shares a meme of the day, but like there's so many smart people on Twitter. I learn so much from people on Twitter and they keep me entertained. So I always try and have like a healthy dose of optimism and fun and laughter. So I always go for the funny ones. But I could sit here and list off like people who I reference all the time because I don't know that I can pick one. It's kind of like
All
your
right, that's
like
that's
your
cool.
kid.
I agree. So who should people follow based on the tweet of the day? Let's give someone a follower who's maybe listening in right now.
Oh, the NFT dude for sure. He is
Ah,
so funny.
uh-huh.
I really like him. I've actually met him in real life.
Yep,
He's a solid, super funny guy.
cool.
Um, Not Thread Guy is another great one. I mean, there's
Yeah.
dozens, and I try and mix them up a lot in that particular tweet of the day. And I thought, like, today's was funny, where everybody, reference everybody in the NFT space wanting their privacy and wanting to not dox themselves. And then a project says, "Hey, we're going to send you a hoodie," and they're like, "Yeah, my name is so and so, and I live at 123 Main Street." It's like the
Yeah.
funniest, most ridiculous thing, but.
To dox or not to dox? That is the question. What are your thoughts on that, Ralph?
I'm doxxed, so I
Yeah.
will always lean. It's like, look, what are we hiding? Like, I get it, and not the most popular opinion in some circles, but the reality of it is that in the real world, we're doxxed. We may not want to represent ourselves with our faces, right? Like I have a doodle as a PFP, but it's not because I want to hide myself. It's because I feel aligned with that doodle. But I think as this space develops, and if we want more and more people to take it seriously, there has to be a broader level of transparency, especially if you're launching a project, right? That's something I'm seeing more and more because of the
Yeah.
research that I do. Projects that whose founders are doxxed tend to do better longer term than projects where they're not doxxed.
I think that's really important. I think credibility is everything in the space. I love my PFPs. I'm constantly switching them up and then some fun, in studio photos that we
Really?
do. Huh?
You switch them up. That's
I do.
interesting. I was going to ask you about that because I think I've only been without my doodle for like a day, and then I was like, no, I got to put it back.
Well,
Um,
the other night, because of one of your Daily Ralphas, I had gotten into the ENS,
yep.
the PFPs,
Yeah.
and I came into the thing and I just pressed it. I wanted to come up and speak and say that you're coming on, super excited, and I learned about this community through the Daily Ralpha, and he's like, "Craigo Crypto, you're not coming on, and unless you haven't." So I literally went into my meta, I did a cut and paste, and he's like, "Oh, you got one?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I just come on and say what's up and show some Web3 love. What's going on here?"
I
And then
love those guys. I love those guys. They gave me a ton of crap too for not having my ENS Maxi as my PFP. But look, that's an example of an incredible community. they're so tight, and they've got each other's backs, and they're so generous, Craig. Actually, I've been in this space for a bit over a year, and one of the most generous acts in this space happened to me the other night during one of the ENS Maxi Twitter spaces. You know, as you know, because you and I have spoken about it, I'm long on ENS names. I think that's the ultimate utility play in the NFT market. And I could talk to you for 14 days straight about ENS domains and strategy around that. But this particular community, was discussing kind of what the future, what it looks like. And I had one member, young guy in the community, who actually bought my name, Ralph Quintero, .eth, and gifted it to me. And I later found out that he spent the last $7 he had doing that. Now, one, shame on me for not buying my full name. So I've had Ralph Q.eth since the very beginning because it's short. And he said, look, I know that that's short, but this is your name. Like, how can you not own your name? And there's people in the space that are going to try and like buy it and then make you pay dearly for it. So here it is. It's a gift. And I was blown away, right? Like, what other space do you know that people do that kind of stuff? What other space do you know that people like will gladly like lend you an ETH? I'm in groups where I see that happen day in and day out with Sean. We see it. It's incredible.
Every bit of good information that he can give me. I've heard some very hard lessons along the way, and so he's kind of shared those stories with me. But that's an amazing thing. It kind of goes to the idea of like giftology. There's a book
Mhm.
out there that says if you want to really connect with somebody, give them something that is the best in class, and that person who gifted that to you um, formed an instantaneous relationship. Now it's their job and your job to mentor and foster that relationship together to build if that relationship is worth being had. But that is a phenomenal story, and that to me is like,
100%.
like
That's my
you
gift
coming
of
out.
choice, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's my
You're
gift of
good.
choice. I gift ENS names. Like, I'll be at a restaurant, I'll be talking to a manager. It happened here recently in Wynwood, in Miami. I was at an incredible restaurant, one of the most incredible dining experiences of my life. And I was talking to the owner, and he's crypto curious, had just bought his first NFT, and I gifted him his restaurant name, and he'll never forget that, right? And
Wow.
it cost me nothing to do that for him, right?
Yeah.
But that's how much I believe in it, that everybody should have them, and it's a great gesture to do for somebody, and the
I
fact that somebody did it for me was incredible.
I have two. I have metastaterealtor.eth
Nice,
and I have Poom, .eth. So I have those two, and then I have obviously the ENS Maxi PFP. So I'll continue
nice.
to build to that collection over time. But to me, that's special because a lot of my realtor friends are very curious about what is this Web3 space? How are digital assets going to impact the real estate world? And I said, in ways that you can't even imagine. And sort of, I'm opening that storybook right now and seeing how that's possible. I do want to talk to you about my favorite alpha group. And actually, I believe they're tomorrow. It's tonight. Tonight's a Twitter Spaces. Can we
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? And what is JPEG Morgan? What should people know about this group?
JPEG Morgan is near and dear to my heart. So JPEG Morgan was the first non-family WhatsApp group about NFTs that I became a part of. So I joined when it was just like 6 or 7 guys wanting to learn more about NFTs, and we were just sharing what we were learning, some of the things that were coming up. And one day after I joined that group, somebody in the group asked, hey, is this minting today or tomorrow? And I happened to share what was, before it had a name, before it was the Daily Ralpha, I shared my daily update with them. They're like, oh my God, you need to start sharing that here. Look at all this alpha. And then somebody else in the group said, that's not alpha, that's Ralpha. And that's how it all began. And that's how it earned its name. But that group started to grow, and very quickly. And so group formed in August. By the time end of September rolled around, we were like 60 strong. And then one of our members said, we should name ourselves something. And we started bouncing ideas around, and somebody said JPEG Morgan as a parody, and we were like, oh my God, that's incredible. And it stuck. And today it's 250 of the most incredible people in this space. It's kind of the who's who of NFTs. It's not a paid alpha group. It's by invitation only. There is an application process, but you have to be recommended by somebody in the group. And it's just incredible because it's a network of people that want to see Web3 succeed. It's a network of people that want to see other friends succeed, and it's people who know that long term the success of Web3 is going to revolutionize and change the world. And I love being a part of it.
Yeah, I do too. And by the way, Tony, if you could do a quick screen share, I just want people to see what's going on for tonight. Talk a little bit about that Twitter Spaces. So if you can do a screen share, tell us a little bit about this particular talk for this evening.
Yeah, so the late show with JPEG Morgan is a new initiative for us. We've run Twitter Spaces all the time, but this is going to be one that is going to become just a regular show. We're calling it the Late Show with JPEG Morgan, so kind of a night show, late show kind of vibe. And we're always going to have guests or some of our JPEG Morgan members and showcase people. So tonight we have the artist Dalek and Diego Briseña, who Dalek is a very well-known U.S. artist. And they're getting ready to launch their second project together. It's an animated project that will eventually be turned into a video game. Two of the nicest people in this space, great stories to share. So looking forward to today. We're going to have several members up on stage and interviewing those guys, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The
I look
show itself is always a lot of fun. So I recommend that anybody who can join, set your reminders. It's at 8 p.m. tonight,
Yep.
8 p.m. every night, every Monday night, and you're going to get a lot out of it.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be on there. So I do want to do another screen share. And I want to talk about the CryptoLeauge. And what I love about this, right? And it's like coming onto the platform, I was like, oh, they've got this degen mode. So I want to talk a little bit about this platform, what's going on, any insight that people should be thinking about now. So Tony, if you could just cue that in the screen share, that would be amazing. And
So
yeah.
so on this one, there's not a lot I can talk about because it's still being built in stealth. But it is fun. That whole degen mode. There's two modes to the website for people that just want the regular kind of Web 2 view, and then we degenified it with degen language in terms of what it is. But what CryptoLeauge's mission is to revolutionize the way that communities come together to invest, and it is one of the most incredible platforms that I have ever seen or been a part of. They're building every single day. It's a team of 18 people between Miami, Colombia, and Brazil. The founding team is absolutely incredible. Rodolfo Saccoman, the CEO, he's a four-time Miami founder. He actually, with his first startup, he was on the first season of Shark Tank and won. Our other co-founder, Gleb Chapilo, was the one of the co-founders of Authy. So if you ever get a text when you log onto your bank or a website, that was his doing. And then Jeff Knuckles was the head of HP Services North America, and he was handling everything blockchain for government related projects. So very, very solid founding team. And I can't say much beyond that, other than within a few months, you'll see beta roll out, and it's going to be amazing.
I'm excited. I mean, that is a very powerful team, and with you on board, I feel very, very confident. The biggest thing that I want to draw people to is the dailyralpha.com. Guys, it's very easy. You just put in your email right there on the screen. Hey, Tony, let's do that screen share so people can see it. What's up, Twitter Spaces? I see you. So this right here is easy. Just fill out your email. This is one of the best ways that Craigo's Crypto Corner, Craigo, has learned how to navigate what projects I want to get into, great advice, notable tweets, jobs in the Web3 space, because it is real. Just go and hit that subscribe button. Anything else that people should think about when they're going to this, or did I kind of cover that?
No, I think you covered it. And the key here is all you need to do is drop your email. It's free. It's every day. You're going to get it every weekday, usually before 8 a.m. If there's something major going on the weekend, I'll drop some information there. And then the newly added section at the bottom of the page that says NFT tools. If you want to get a directory of all the NFT tools, they're down there as well.
All right. So I want to talk about your favorite PFP, Doodles. So
Yes.
tell me, I know. So when you say that an NFT resonates with you, there are a couple NFTs that I really like, and so for me, it's On-Chain Monkey, which is on the Ethereum
Mhm.
blockchain, and shout out to Drew Austin from the Knights of Degen. I love the Knights of Degen. Shout out my buddy. So I'm always, kind of when you talk about the switching of the PFPs, I want to draw conversation not just on social, but I want my friends to know, what is that? And so when you put up a different PFP, it creates that conversation. So talk to me a little about Doodles and why it's so special to you.
So Doodles is special to me for many reasons. It's the artwork, it's the community, and it's really the positive vibes. Right? I kick off every day with a morning, positive tweet. I like my affirmations. I love my positive quotes, my motivational and inspirational quotes, and that's what the first vibe that I got from Doodles was. It was all about making people happy, moving the space forward. There was no ego, and I loved the art. It was just so simple, so colorful. It had rainbows, it had like bandanas. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and
and
by the way, the big announcement at NFT and OSC, and just correct me if I'm wrong, was Pharrell Williams is heading up the music part of it. So they've got a lot of really great partnerships. Can you dive in on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, the project long term wants to be a major IP brand, right? So think along the lines of Disney or Coke or Apple. Like that's the aspirations that this team has. And the first step in that direction was when they hired their new CEO, Julian Olguin. So
Yeah.
Julian was the ex-CEO of Billboard magazine, right? So a staple in the music space. So it was very interesting to me when they made that move. And then shortly after, I think within a week, they announced that Pharrell was going to be head of brand. And that's massive, right? Like we're talking about two power players in the space that have experience with IP. So I imagine a world where, we could see Doodles theme parks. And I do imagine a world where we can see, Doodles figures and toys at toy stores. And I also imagine a world because of the way that they've built that project where the people who are holding the PFPs that they end up using are going to see incredible benefits as a result of that. Total speculation, right? Like, we've got Doodles 2 coming up, we've got a bunch of other things, but
Yeah.
I think that's the direction that they head in.
Well, you also speak to a little bit on intellectual property and copyright.
Mhm.
And just last week, we were actually at 11 Blue Hill in Westport, which is a beautiful $11.5 million modern style property. It's absolutely gorgeous inside. And I talked about Creative Commons license, CCO. And what I found most interesting is that projects like, for instance, On-Chain Monkey, they have one of the most expensive licenses in the industry. So they allow you, like Bored Ape, you can monetize off of your PFP so long as you own it. But if you're going to go and create copycat collections, that's where they kind of draw the line, and you have to go up and make sure you're getting permission. So I think full waiving of CCO is kind of it's interesting. I don't know. So, but here it leads me into this next thing.
Mhm.
The project that's drawn my attention, and I think the reason that it's drawn my attention is because it's everything that I'm against. Like I believe in utility. I believe in let's hold the floor. I believe in good, positive conversations on Twitter and Discord. By the way, this project we're about to talk about doesn't even have a Discord page. And right on their banner, it says Zero Valley. So I that drew my attention because it was sort of like a trolling of NFT, and I love it, and I picked it up because of that, and then I would make the joke, "You don't want this," and so Tony Q in that screen share, the rotten antisocial club, right? They got a verification check mark, and they frowned on that. How dare you pick up this garbage? And all that I'm gonna do, I'm just saying this for the record, is I'm gonna continue to pick up this rotten antisocial club because I wanna save other people from making the mistake of getting a wasted project. Ralph, what are your thoughts, my friend?
Look, I think that this project is brilliant, right? First off, the name Rodden Antisocial Club, the fact that they're speaking to all of the atrocities that we see in this space, how people treat communities, how people treat people that are trying to sell, how people look at floor price. I mean, I think that this is kind of a textbook way of looking at the NFT space through the lens of total and complete parity. I mean, it's really bringing to light the things that we all should be against in this space. And I think that's why I love it. And the other thing that I love is that it has a super engaged community, right? So, yes, we're all talking about our trash and how dare they, and this is the worst thing, but it's those very things that are bringing us all together, right?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the first Twitter space that I joined with them. We were talking, you and I just spoke about being rugged earlier. It
Yeah.
was all about getting people to share what their rugs were. Like, how did they get rugged? Why did they get rugged? Did they know they were getting rugged? And honestly, Craig, how many people do you know just openly sit and talk about all the times that they've gone rugged? We always see people like joking about it on Twitter, but like this was a legitimate conversation going on, and everybody was there to support everybody else. So that to me is the best kind of community. Because you know what, Greg? You cannot fake community.
No,
That's
you
one
can't.
thing that my research has taught me. You cannot fake community.
By the way,
And
when I got rugged, I called Dan at the time, and I
uh,
called Sean, and Sean's like, "All right, we got some work to do," and, I was panicking because, definitely in the bull, I was playing a lot harder. Now I've been a little more pulled back, but I interrupted you. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, this project to me, one, there's people behind this project in terms of the dev teams and marketing teams that I highly respect.
Yeah,
The artist has opted to remain anonymous. I don't know how much longer the artist is going to remain anonymous, but I'll tell you that I think that the art is actually brilliant. And every day I go in and I try and figure out, because the team hasn't been very forthcoming, but like, what do all the traits mean? Why are there different backgrounds? What I'm trying to read into what the different backgrounds are. Like some of them have like little hash marks. Like what are they counting? Right? Some of them have branded caps versus not branded caps. Is that going to
yeah.
be like a
Yeah,
future
thank you,
utility
Tony.
play?
Yeah.
Right?
No, no,
Who
I hear you.
knows?
Yeah, and this is what I love about it. It's brilliantly done, and it's saying we're garbage, we're nothing, and yet you are. But I think it's the best play because a lot of these communities they should be focused on utility and all the right things and art that's really well put together. And this just says, nah, we're good. We don't need you. If you decide to waste X amount of dollars, please, by all means. I mean, it's right now the time of this recording. It's around $30, give or take, to get in on floor. And it was just really interesting to go through Trade Sniper to kind of see what um, traits are most valued out there. I found that really fascinating, just by ranking. And I was like, okay, interesting. So it helps me to be a smart shopper if I see something that I really like. But I like the idea of it not taking itself so seriously. What
Yep.
is the best alpha that you have found to date concerning an NFT project?
Um, there was a project 7 or 8 months ago called Mount Vesuvius. It was one of the bigger alpha calls that I had at the time in JPEG Morgan, and I had been following this collective of artists, and this was a generative artist out of the UK, and um, he had been experimenting. He was a professor, actually, not an artist by trade, but he had been experimenting with different algorithms for generative art.
Yeah,
And in the Discord that I was in, he's like, "Look, this is the latest output, and I think I'm going to drop it as an NFT." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is absolutely incredible!" And I think they minted for like 0.02, and we saw it within, I don't know, 3 hours of mint go up to 3 ETH, uh, which at the time was incredible amounts of money. So I would still say that that's my biggest alpha play in a short period of time.
I love it. I love it. So I always believe it. Like in this space, you have such tremendous credibility. Your humility is phenomenal to take out the time to connect with my podcast. I like for people, and I had said this on a few other podcasts. The one area that I think the one social platform that's not getting enough of its just due in this Web3 space, and we need to bring it more there because it's a behavioral thing. Nobody cares about the dinner you had last night. Is on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And so I just want to do a quick screen share. I want people to see this handsome face, and I want people to just connect with you. More importantly, I want them to connect with your newsletter. But on the screen share, if you just do that, I'm a heavy believer in LinkedIn because LinkedIn is where all the business professionals are, and where you're going to Thanksgiving dinner with the family. You're going to come in there. You're going to come in there dressed. There's make sure you're spelling no spelling errors. Make sure you've got a good photo and make sure that your branding is done right and you nail it alongside of your PFP. I like it. You got a picture of you and your PFP. That's a smart play.
So very, very intentional there. So
Mhm.
for a little bit of time, LinkedIn has been penalizing people using PFPs because they're saying that they're not being their true selves, and that's really, really interesting. So long term, I don't know where they're going to end up standing on that. There's some people who have their PFPs and nothing's happened, and then I personally know of a handful of people who had their PFPs and then got penalized for it. So I opted to keep my picture and include my PFP in the banner just in case. Um, but who knows where it goes, but it is important. Like if we want to legitimize what we do in this space, we need to talk to people about it, and we need for people to understand that yes, we are involved in this space, whether you're working for another company or not, right? Like you are a real estate professional, but you are making big moves in the Web3 space, right? So branding yourself as that and having that on your LinkedIn profile starts to have people make that connection and say, Craig is an incredible real estate professional. He must know what he's talking about if he's also talking about Web3. And it starts to add that legitimacy to it,
Yeah.
which is so important.
Thank you. I I'm beyond honored. I think there was a lot to learn, and I think what's really cool is when I go back and I listen to the podcast, I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. That was talked about." Or I thought about this new tool like Vitamin 3. I can't wait to just dive into that and consume information. I will continue to promote and market. And what's really cool is you make very easy if I just want to share something very quick each day. I literally I'll quote you, I'll tag you on Twitter and say this is something really cool. And it's a way to not only engage with my audience, but it's also a way to share valuable content coming directly from the Daily Ralpha. Ralph, this is an honor, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on to Craig's Crypto Corner.
Craig, man, this has been amazing. Your energy is contagious. I wish I could stay here and talk to you for hours and hours. We probably could. We could probably talk for a few days straight. So hopefully a couple months from now, I can come back on and we can share more about our journeys and what we've seen, because the space does change so fast. So thanks again. Really appreciate you, brother.